Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Thank you to everyone for taking the time to join us this morning, especially our very special guest, Attorney General Lisa Madigan, who has taken time out of her very busy schedule to be with us here in Romeoville, in Will County. We're glad that she's back here in our community. For those of you who don't know me, I am State Representative Emily McCasey, and I represent us right here in Romeoville as well as in northern Will County. And before we begin, I want to take a moment to acknowledge some other elected officials who are with us. We have a number of county-wide elected officials. First, we have our county executive, the Honorable Larry Walsh. We are joined by our Will County State's Attorney, Jim Glasgow. The Recorder of Deeds, Recorder Karen Stuckel. And the Will County Regional Office of Education Superintendent, Sean Walsh. And two of my colleagues from the Illinois Legislature, State Representative Natalie Manley and State Senator Jennifer Bertino-Tarrant. Again, thanks to each of them for taking time to join us. It is my honor this morning to introduce our guest speaker, the Attorney General Lisa Madigan. I have been so fortunate to work with the Attorney General over the years that I've served on our community, really on a number of issues. Legislative issues, including just this spring, working to close a loophole related to the escape of sexually violent persons, and over the last few sessions, working on numerous initiatives to better protect people in the community from predators and work for crime victims. In addition to those legislative items, I have been very fortunate to work with the Attorney General as well as her office on numerous programs like the one this morning to make sure that we are getting information into the community about common frauds, scams. Over the last several years, we've been working related to housing and mortgage fraud going on as well. I know that the Attorney General has helped many constituents with issues ranging from child support enforcement and consumer fraud issues, which is why today's topic is so very timely. So thank you to our wonderful Attorney General for all that she does. Thanks for being here to lead us in this roundtable discussion.
Let me say thank you to all of you for taking the time for being here. This is quite an impressive turnout, and I started the applause for Larry Walsh in part because he's my former colleague. We served in the state senate together, and he's a great public servant, and so I'm very pleased to see him, as well as Jim Glasgow, as well as all of the wonderful women who have replaced all the wonderful men who once represented you, and they do a terrific job and are really helpful to me when we're trying to move forward with important legislation to better protect people in the state. So let me tell you why we gathered you here today. A lot of the work that takes place out of the Illinois Attorney General's office involves consumer fraud and consumer protection. And I would say for many, many years, we are able to look over at all the complaints and all the questions and concerns that come to our office, and we're able to determine what the trends are, what the real significant issues are. And so since I've been in the office for over 10 years at this point, what I can tell you is nearly for the past decade, we have seen an incredible increase in the number of questions and complaints coming to us overall, but very specifically about issues contending with the data breaches and identity theft. And so we're going to take some time today to walk you through what you can do, well actually, what is a data breach, what is identity theft, what you can do to protect yourself, and then we're also going to take some time to talk about senior scams, because unfortunately, older people are consistent targets for scam artists, and we also can tell you what the trends are in those types of scams. But what I want to do first is to step back just a little bit because the real meat is going to be presented to you by Anna and Skip and Mary. I want to step back and give you a sense of just how much we contend with. So the Illinois Attorney General's office, nobody really knows what we do. But what we do is, in fact, run the 4th largest law firm in the state of Illinois. I think I have approximately 350 lawyers in the office, probably a total of 750 employees. A lot of what we do is civil side work because it's your state's attorneys that are doing the criminal prosecution work on the front end. And so what we do is deal with, with a law firm for the state and therefore for the people of the state. We do a lot of work to bring in resources to the state. And so over the past 10 plus years, we've brought over $10 billion to the state. If you follow the news, yesterday we were able to announce $84 million coming to the state from Citibank because of problems that they had in their residential mortgage-backed securities that were part of really the entire mess that brought down our economy in 2008. A lot of that money, $44 million, will actually be going to the Illinois pension systems to recover for their losses that they incurred when they invested in those securities. So we do a lot of work for the state, but we also do a lot of work for the people of the state. Emily was kind enough to mention a lot of the work we've been doing around mortgage fraud and trying to help homeowners. And all of you in Will County know that Will County took a real hit during the mortgage and foreclosure crisis. So far, through the variety of lawsuits that we have brought and investigations and settlements, we've been able to bring back over $2.4 billion in relief to homeowners. And I'm very proud of that, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done to better protect people's financial security in our state. So that's the reason we're here today. One of the things that we look at are just the raw number of questions, concerns, and complaints that we get. The past several years, we are averaging 200,000 people calling us, and oftentimes those calls result in actual complaints being filled out. So when somebody has a concern, they've got a problem, they have a dispute with a business, an organization, an individual about a good or a service that they've purchased, they call us. Usually, we're kind of the last resort for them. A lot of people know to call the Better Business Bureau first, and that's a perfectly great place to call. If that can't be resolved, they sometimes call us, sometimes first, sometimes second, but they get to us eventually. What I want to tell you is that back in 2006, for the first time ever, we saw identity theft complaints hit our #1 complaint in terms of volume of overall complaints. 2008, and the financial crisis hit, and identity theft went down to the #2 category. It was replaced by a lot of the credit complaints, the mortgage complaints, the credit card complaints, the debt collector complaints. But it has stayed consistently at #2, and last year in 2013, we saw an enormous increase in the number of ID theft complaints again. And I think it's in part because of some of the very large data breaches that took place that got a lot of coverage in the media. So the Target breach, the Michaels breach, the Neiman Marcus breach, the recent eBay breach, we're seeing more and more people calling us saying that they don't know what that means and they're concerned. So Anna is going to go through in great detail all of that with you. But I want you to do two things. I want you to open up those folders that we gave you, and I want you to pull out two things. Not that all of that paper isn't really important, but I'm going to tell you what I think is the most important. So on one side, you have a brochure. It's a pretty thick one because it has actually all the information you've ever needed on identity theft. It's the Identity Theft Resource Guide. This literally walks you through from start to finish what you should do to protect your personal financial information, what to do if you have been notified that your information has been compromised, what to do if you have actually become a victim of identity theft. We actually even have in here sample letters that all you need to do is put your own personal information in if you need to contact your creditors or credit reporting agencies. But the most important thing I'm going to say about all the information you have in those brochures is this. There are phone numbers on every single piece of paper that we've given you, and I strongly encourage you to use the phone numbers. Here's the best thing about the Illinois Attorney General's office. We still employ humans to answer our phones. It always works. I always get applause for that. I love that. So call us. And I employ people that they get there a little before 9. I think about, 8:30 we start to answer our phones. And they stay there until 6 answering the phones, except for Fridays when I think we let them leave at 5. So there's somebody there to answer the phone during the day, and they can explain things to you. Even better, when it comes to the identity theft issues, we have a unit of people, a specialized unit that we put in place in 2006. I think we're the only state AG's office in the country that does this, who can walk you through all this information. We're not just going to hand you a book and say good luck, but we will actually help you through the process. And this is what's amazing to me. We put that group in place. We have fielded over 40,000 requests for assistance. We've helped over 35,000 people here in Illinois remove over $26 million of fraudulent charges from their credit. So this is a very significant and legitimate concern. The other piece of paper I want you to pull out, which is just kind of my favorite piece of paper, it's kind of a cheat sheet. It's this little one page, and it says fraud alerts across the top, protect yourself from scams. This is going to be a lot of what Skip goes through, but it gives you in one place many of the common scams that we are seeing, particularly those that are directed at seniors. And so I encourage you to familiarize yourself with those in case you get a phone call or somebody shows up at your door with one of these great ideas to take your money. Let me say one final thing. The reason you were identified to be here today is that you are really leaders in the community. Whether you work with law enforcement, whether you work with veterans, whether you work with seniors, whether you're with the chamber, whatever it is you do, you serve other people. You are in contact with other people. So with the information that we're providing you today, our goal isn't just to make you smarter and aware, but it's to make sure that we're giving this information to people who can then share it with other members of the community, and all members of your community. So your family members, your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers, and especially those people that you serve. We really are trying to find an efficient and effective way to get this information out. So obviously, in addition to encouraging people to call our office, we obviously keep all this information available 24 hours a day on our website, which is illinoisattorneygeneral.gov. And I'm sure that that is printed on every piece of paper we hand you as well. So that entire brochure you can get online and actually just look through. But again, anytime you have a question or a concern, whether it is on one of these topics or another one, please feel free to call, talk to a human. If we can't answer the question directly, we will absolutely find somebody who can. One of my main goals is to make sure that we can keep people in Illinois financially secure. The economy has been terrible for many years now, and unfortunately under those circumstances, we see a lot of the scam artists who prey on people just because of that. And so yesterday we had an announcement about several lawsuits that we brought regarding student loan debt relief scams. Really what folks are doing is saying to the large number of people across our country who are struggling to make their student loan payments, oh, we can help you. We can reduce your debt by half. We can completely eliminate your student loan debt. Just call us for free information. People call, and then what we find out is what these people really want is a very large upfront payment, as much as $1,200 to start. Sometimes there's a monthly payment that comes later as well. So they ask people very aggressively for their credit card number, their bank account number. People give them that information, that money is taken away from them, and at the end of the day, very rarely do they receive any help, any services whatsoever. It's no different from what we saw several years ago when those scammers were going after people with large amounts of credit card debt. No different than what we saw previous to that when people were struggling to make their mortgage payments, the mortgage rescue scams. So unfortunately, it is people who can least withstand being scammed who are the primary targets of these scam artists. And if you take nothing else away from what you learned today, know that there's only one con out there, and it is a con to get your money. And they either take your money directly because you give them your credit card number, your bank account number, or they get it indirectly because you give them your personal information or they steal your personal information. And so we're going to go through with you how to better protect that personal information, how to watch over it to make sure you haven't been victimized by an identity theft scam. And then Skip will go over with you how to better protect yourself from giving away your money when you get a lot of these very emotional, very scary pleas of, your grandchild is in jail, or, you missed jury duty and now there's, a warrant out for your arrest. So we want to make sure that people are financially safe and sound. Again, I thank you for your time, and I encourage you to give your full attention to Anna Crane, who's going to be up next to talk about, in much more detail, everything you ever wanted to know about identity theft. Thank you, Anna.
General Madigan. I'm here today to talk about data security, data breaches, and identity theft. And as the Attorney General said, the reason is because we're seeing consumers in Illinois being severely affected by these things. We live in a world where we share information all the time. We share it online, maybe through Facebook or other places. We also share information when we use our credit card online. When we go onto our bank account online and log in and look at our credit card statement, our bank account information. Every time you do these types of things, which we all do, you are sharing information about yourself with someone else. And anytime you do that, that information needs to be protected. And sometimes we see, in the case of large data breaches, that that information is not safe. In the Target, Neiman Marcus, and Michaels data breaches that the Attorney General mentioned, we saw over 100 million credit cards compromised. I have a new credit card and a new debit card because of those breaches, so it's very easy to be affected by these things. And every time information goes out into the cybersphere, or anytime anyone steals information from a business, that information is ripe for identity theft. And there are a million consequences of that. So what we're going to focus on today is how to prevent it from happening in the first place. Once identity theft has occurred, it's really hard to clean up. It's hard to get money back, it's hard to repair your credit, hard to get things removed. So we want to do everything we can now to prevent it from happening in the first place. So today we're going to talk about good data security practices. And I'm going to focus on what you and I can do. Of course, businesses, government, internet providers, they have obligations, but there are things that we can do as well. I also want to walk through some tips to recognize, respond to, and prevent identity theft. And then also some of the resources that we have in our office specifically related to data security, data breaches, and identity theft. So to start, I want to make sure we have a very good basic definition for all these things. What is data security? What is a data breach? And what is identity theft? Data security is any program, any system designed to protect information. It's pretty basic. But information is vulnerable when it is collected, when it's stored, when it's transferred, and even when it's disposed. So when you share your credit card information with a website, you are giving it, that's a transfer. Then the website, that company might have your credit card information for a period of time as they process that transaction. They're going to send your credit card number to the bank. So all of these points, there needs to be a system in place to protect your information. And on the consumer side of things like good practices about your own data, thinking about how you're sharing your information, when you're sharing it, and who you're giving it to, that's good data security as well. A data breach is a failure of any of those systems. So an encryption that has vulnerabilities, a firewall that has vulnerabilities. There are lots of ways that a data breach can occur. It's really just the exposure of information to someone who's not supposed to have access. So if someone logs into a computer system, looks at a database, maybe they don't actually steal the information, but they've looked at it. It could have social security numbers in it. That's a data breach. We can see data breaches happen from a malicious standpoint. That's your standard hacking into a computer system. That's the Target, Neiman Marcus, all those data breaches that you hear about a lot. A lot of those are because someone wanted to get that information and they wanted to steal it and use it. But data breaches can also be like a human or technical error. Someone accidentally posts something online that contains personal information that they weren't supposed to. Or someone leaves a spreadsheet. There's a case where someone actually left a spreadsheet containing social security numbers in a backpack that they left at a train station. I don't know why they had it in their backpack in the first place. That's a data breach. Because the information is out there, someone could have accessed it, and it could have been stolen. So then, all of this, a data breach occurs, information goes out there, it can result in identity theft. Identity theft is using the personal identifying information of another person to fraudulently obtain credit, money, goods, services, or property. It's really quite broad. Some examples that we see in our office fairly regularly are using someone's personal information to access their existing accounts. I know your information, so I get into your checking account. Or opening a new account, opening a credit card account in someone else's name. There have been cases where people have used the identity of another person to get a lease for an apartment or obtain a loan for a house or a car. People will also use the identity of someone else to get a job. If they're not going to pass a credit check, they might, use someone else's identity, or a background check, excuse me. They might use someone else's identity to get a job. There are all sorts of ways. We heard from someone at a roundtable earlier this year who had been notified by the county recorder of deeds that she should put an alert on her deed for her home because someone was trying to steal it, or trying to sell it. They had stolen her identity and were trying to sell her home. So there are lots of ways that an identity thief can use your personal information. The impacts are pretty obvious, but severe. They can drain your bank account, so you lose money you already have. If they use your credit card, they can make new charges. They might increase your credit limit. So where you had a $500 credit limit before, you now have a $1,500 credit limit, and surprise, surprise, an extra $1,000 was spent. And all of these things can impact your credit rating, your credit score, which impact your own ability to get a loan, a mortgage, get a credit card, sometimes rent an apartment, and even public aid. So it's serious, which is why we're here today, to talk about how do we stop this from happening. So, good data security practices. This first one seems pretty simple, but a lot of people kind of fail to do it. Everyone has weaknesses. This is mine. Your passwords that you use to log into your email, your bank account online, your credit card account online, your work computer, your work email, those are very important. Your name, your login, and your password. If that's stolen, an identity thief has access to a lot of information. So it's very important to make sure that you are using good practices, such as changing your password frequently, avoiding using common words, try to use exclamation points and asterisks. Another good tip that I use is to have a sentence in mind that you'll always remember. Maybe it's your favorite song lyric, maybe it's a mantra you have, and use the first letter of each word in that sentence. Pretty easy, you'll always remember it, and it'll look like a strange string of characters that will be hard to hack into. If you do this, and a password is hard to uncover, it's even better if you can find a way to use different passwords in different places. If you use a password at your bank account and your email and your Amazon account, an identity thief only has to get that password once. And if they have it, they will use it multiple times and see what they can find. So it's hard to do because then you have to remember a lot of passwords, but try to vary it up and to change them frequently. Another important tip is to update your software on your phone, your laptop, your computer, a tablet, anything you use electronically, because those updates are usually security updates. Usually, a programmer will find a flaw in the security system, and the update is a way to fix it. If you don't fix it, then usually that vulnerability is known, and hackers have a great way to get into your system. So be sure to update it whenever you're prompted. It's easy to ignore those little balloons, but try to do it whenever you get a notification. Is anyone familiar with the phishing scam? Has anyone heard of phishing before? A few people? So phishing is when someone portrays themselves as someone you know through electronic means to try and get you to do something. So they may send you an email that looks like it's from your brother-in-law, but it's not. It's from a scam artist. But inside that email will be a link that if you clicked it would have, maybe it would install software to steal your information from your computer, or maybe it'll log your keys, or maybe it'll direct you to a website that you think you know, like your bank or a common retailer, but it's not. It's a fake site. And so you put in your information and now they've stolen it. So be on the lookout for emails or even texts on your phone that don't look quite right. If it's an email from your brother-in-law about a funny cat video, he's not into that, like, don't click on the link. Ask them, did you mean to send me that information so that you're not exposing yourself to some type of theft that could lead to your identity being stolen. These last two are big picture tips that we should think about all the time when you're online, but also in face-to-face interactions, but I'm talking primarily when you're on the computer. Only share information with trusted sources. Look at privacy policies. They're boring. I read them all the time, but I know they're not fun for most people, but it's important. A website, a mobile application that you download, all those things, they should have a privacy policy, which will tell you how they care about your information. You may not understand exactly all the technical stuff they're talking about, like what type of encryption they're using or how they're protecting certain pieces of information, but it'll give you a sense of how serious they take data security. And there are companies who don't take it very seriously. If they say they share your information with a lot of different sources, that might be a red flag for you, that your information is going to keep being shared and you may not know where. So it's important to take the time and think about where you're shopping online, where you're filling out surveys that has your information, because you never want it to be used against you later on. Also, only share information when it's absolutely necessary. There are places, there are companies that will ask for more information than they really need. And that type of data is particularly vulnerable because if a company doesn't think that information is important, they're probably not protecting it very well. So it's up to you to think about whether you really want to share pieces of information. For example, just this weekend, I was at Best Buy, and I was buying a satellite radio for my boyfriend's birthday. And they asked me at the register for, I think they started with my phone number. And I usually tell retailers, no thanks, I don't really want to share my phone number with you, you don't need it. But this time I didn't think much about it, so I gave it. And then he started asking for my name, my address, all sorts of information. And I was like, why do you need this? Do you really need this for this transaction? And he had no idea. So he actually called over a manager and found out why they were collecting it. In the end, it was for getting like a month free of service or something, so I gave it. But it's worth it to ask, because maybe you don't care about that month of service and you'd rather not share your information. So it's worth it to take the time and think about it, because they may be asking without thinking about it themselves. So be responsible for your own data. A few more tips. The first, be sure to dispose of any personal information properly. If it's on paper, shred documents, be sure to do that. But also think about electronic devices. If you have a laptop that you're getting rid of, or a phone, that electronic device probably has information about you on it. If it's your computer, you might have old tax returns on there, or who knows what types of documents you have on it. So make sure that you're taking the time to delete information. Lots of places have services to delete electronic information. So think about where your data is going when you're trying to get rid of documents and devices. This next one, frequently check your accounts for fraudulent activity. The Attorney General really advocates that everyone install what are called transaction alerts on your accounts. If you have a transaction alert on your checking account, it'll send you a notification every time someone uses your debit card. So if you go to 7-Eleven and buy a Slurpee, you'll get a notification you just spent $3 at 7-Eleven. But if we were sitting here and you got a notification that someone just spent $500 at Best Buy, and you're the only one who can use your debit card, it's a pretty good sign that someone has your information. So it's one way to keep track of your accounts. I check my credit card and checking accounts almost every day, so that's another way to do it. But look for unauthorized charges. One woman told us a couple months ago that she had a charge of 25 cents on her checking account. She called the bank reversed the charge, she didn't think anything of it. 25 cents, not a big deal. A month later, her identity was stolen. So it was a good sign that someone had gotten her information and ran a little charge to make sure that the information was valid. And then when they were ready, they emptied her bank account, they charged all her credit cards. This is the same woman who had they were trying to sell her house. So if you notice those charges, take them seriously. Contact the bank, start contacting your creditors, and then go to the next one, which is order your free credit reports. Everyone is entitled to one free credit report from each of the 3 credit reporting agencies. So that means you have access to 3 free credit reports a year. I put an alarm on my calendar that says every 4 months, order a different one. So that 3 times a year, I'm checking my credit, looking at the accounts that have been opened. It helps you monitor your credit throughout the year. Look for unauthorized accounts. If you have a car loan for a car you didn't buy, someone's stolen your information. Look for accounts that that are in debt or have negative credit associated with them that doesn't make sense to you. Like I was saying, sometimes an identity thief will use your credit card and up your credit limit. And you may not have noticed this, so maybe the account is past due and you didn't realize it. Another sign is if there are a lot of checks on your credit, like someone has been accessing your credit report a lot, and it's not businesses or individuals that you authorize to do it. So if you're getting checks all the time from different credit card companies who are looking at your credit report, but you're not applying for new credit, it could be a sign that someone's trying to get credit in your name. Fraud alerts and security freezes are also very important if you have noticed some signs of identity theft. So a fraud alert is an alert you put on your credit report that will tell any potential new creditors who try to access your credit report that you have experienced some type of fraud and they should contact you before extending any new credit. Pretty easy. You can still open new credit cards. It's just one little extra step. It makes sure that someone's not opening new accounts in your name. A security freeze is a step further, which stops you from getting any new credit. Because it stops any creditor from accessing your report whatsoever. And a legitimate company is not going to extend credit to someone that they can't access their credit report. So security freeze, maybe not something you want to do as a completely preventative measure, although the Attorney General does talk about she and her husband do have a security freeze on their accounts. So no one can go in and access their report without them knowing about it all the time. Under Illinois law, this is getting back to the data breaches and how they can lead to identity theft. Under Illinois law, if a company suffers a data breach, they're required to notify an Illinois consumer whose personal information was compromised. So has anyone gotten a data breach letter? Has anyone received one? A few people, yeah. So it can be sort of frightening because they tell you your personal information is exposed. But the letter is really notifying you that your information may have been compromised and that you're now at a slightly higher risk for identity theft. It doesn't tell you that you have been a victim, that someone is out there using your information, but it tells you that you should do some of those things I already talked about. Look at your credit report, maybe put on the fraud alerts, start paying attention to your accounts so that you are on the front line knowing what's happening with your personal information, your financial information, so that data breach does not become an instance of identity theft in your case. And if you do find, real quickly, if you do find some of these things, you find an unauthorized account on your credit report or you're seeing unauthorized charges, there are a lot of steps you can take, such as the fraud alert, the security freeze, contact our office, file a police report. It's very important to helping you get those unauthorized charges overturned, and start contacting all your creditors to make sure that they know you've experienced some type of fraud. Maybe you get a new card, maybe you close an account. There's all sorts of things you can do. But as I said, we're focusing today on preventing identity theft. So on that note, I want to talk about, very briefly, some of the things that our office has related to identity theft. As the Attorney General said, we have the hotline. We encourage consumers, advocates, law enforcement to call anytime you have a question. Whether you receive a breach notification letter and you just want to know what's really going on, or whether you know you are a victim of identity theft and you need help, we are there. That's what we're there for. And also, if you do get a breach notification letter, feel free to call us so we know about it. We know what's happening in the community. In your folders today are the Identity Theft Resource Guide and the Information Security and Security Breach Notification Guidance. The Identity Theft Resource Guide, as the Attorney General, as she held that up, has an incredible amount of information. So it is a fantastic resource if you're looking to find some more information on these problems. The second document, the Information Security and Security Breach Notification Guidance, is fantastic for those of you who maybe have some control over your organization's own systems. How you can take precautions to protect your business information, whether it's resident information or consumers, people you help. There's a lot of resources in there as well. And our office does investigate the data breaches, as the Attorney General said, to make sure that companies and government are using proper security practices and that they're notifying consumers as soon as possible. So these are some of the things that we do in our office. I hope it provides a little bit of helpful information. I know it's a lot, and I know it's not everything, actually, but hopefully these are some resources that you can use if you come across these issues in your own life or with someone you're helping in the community. Does anyone have any questions for me? Yes?
Hi, good morning. I'm actually a private citizen.